If I look back at my career and think about the period where I grew the fastest as a developer, it actually wasn't the time when I was learning new languages, frameworks, or pushing a lot of code. It was during my first 2 years at ThoughtWorks, and interestingly, not because I was coding more. It's because I had a chance to experience a lot of things outside of coding. Those 2 years changed everything: how I work, how I think, how I communicate. And it also showed up in tangible ways. My confidence grew, my responsibility increased, I got promoted, and my salary grows too. So in this video, I want to share a few of the habits I picked up during this time. It's not really about writing code, but they play a huge role in accelerating my growth, and they might help you too. So let's get into them. Before joining ThoughtWorks, I had already worked at other software companies. I was productive, familiar with my tools, and could ship features on my own. But at ThoughtWorks, I suddenly entered a completely different environment. Developers, they were not just head-down coding. They were facilitating workshops, running retros, other team retros, helping the pre-sales explain trade-offs to clients, and share knowledge openly across teams in community. They forced me to level up in areas that I hadn't paid much attention to before. So the first thing I learned was the workflow automation. So before ThoughtWorks, I worked in a team where we deployed manually. And when something went wrong in production, we would SSH into the server to debug. That was just how things worked. So when I first saw how ThoughtWorkers did continuous integration, continuous delivery with automated test and deployment pipeline, build pipeline, it might sound normal those days, but it was 2012. I was both shocked and amazed. It felt like a completely different world, one that was smoother, safer, and a lot more productive. I started to pick up more command line tools like grep, awk, different kind of command line tools, and the small script I could chain them up together. All that would make the repetitive task easier. And then came automation, setting up the build pipeline, build script, and so on. The stuff started saving my hours every week. This time I could invest into solve harder, more interesting problems. I eventually wrote a short book called From Commit to Deployment, where I share some of the automation techniques and command line tricks. You can find the book in the description below. Another thing I like to talk about regarding workflow automation is the IDE. So to be fair, I had already been using Vim for a while, and I feel pretty happy with my productivity. I can use the shortcut, customize the plugins and so on. But then I saw how people use IntelliJ. They are just like flying with the keyboard shortcuts, doing automation, automated refactoring, jumping between files. That was another eye-opener. I remember spending nights and weekends just learning those tools and the shortcuts. I even printed out the IntelliJ shortcut on my bedside so I can read them like every now and then. And that feels amazing. So actually I have made a small video on the IDE shortcuts session. You can probably check them out as well. Those improvements might seem small, but they compound. It's not just like speed. It's reducing friction, staying in flow, and free up your brain to focus on the real work. And habit number 2 is obsessing over details. That was this one project where we ran into a really strange bug. It only happened when someone entered a specific birthday and only in a specific time zone. You cannot reproduce it easily by just read the code or running it locally. Everything looked fine. We spent quite some time on it and eventually figured out it was related to a daylight saving time and how the date was passed. So it's kind of strange because in China at that time we don't have the daytime saving program anymore. Only during the specific historic moment, a very narrow edge case. What stood out to me from the bug, it wasn't just the issue itself. It was how different people approach things. Most folks, when they hate something that weird or painful or temporary, they tend to back away from it. It's natural. We all want to avoid messy, frustrating problems that don't have clear answers. But there is a thing. If you build a habit of avoiding a hard issue, those problems will come back again. Maybe you can avoid this time, but it will be in a different shape and it will catch you again and again. So what I saw on the team was the opposite. No one rushed to patch it or move on. They stuck with it. They were patient. They want to understand what was like really going on underneath. That was mindset really stayed with me. Since then, I've tried to treat every strange behavior or edge case as a learning opportunity. This shift helped me get a lot of better at debugging, troubleshooting, and more importantly, it gave me confidence. Even when I am dropped into an unfamiliar code base or tricky problems. Tip number 3 is investing in fundamentals. Back in university, I took a course like compilers and operation system. They were hard, full of concepts like context-free grammar, finite state machines, memory management, page management stuff. And honestly, I didn't find them very practical at that point. I was like, okay, I got the theory, but how does it help me write better code, in a day-to-day work? But when I started working on real-world projects, things like workflow engines, approval processes, permission system, all different kind of application, this concept start to click. I look at the state machine diagram and think, oh, this is like familiar to me. It's like automated stuff we did in the uni. But now it's representing real business logic. This is when I start to realize something important. So frameworks and libraries change over time, but the principles underneath them stay stable. Once you understand those fundamentals, you start to see past the surface of things. You can spot patterns and diagnose problems that at the first glance seems unrelated, but deep down, they flow the same structure. Without a foundation, it's easy to feel like you are constantly firefighting, fixing issues here and there, one-off, without really understanding why they keep popping up. But with a solid understanding of the fundamentals, you can often resolve issues at the root and prevent future ones before that happen. So this kind of insight give me a real leverage, because you're not just patching symptoms, you're thinking in system, and things started to connect to each other. Like this symptom, even like it's very different on the surface, they are actually the same problem. So spend some time on the fundamental. It will help you significantly. And the tip number 4 is about writing. Writing to clarify my thinking. So during these projects, I developed a habit of taking notes just to help myself remember what I learned. And later, those notes turned into blog posts. Actually, I started blogging quite earlier, right after I graduated from uni. I still remember publishing those few articles. They were simple, but they helped me to organize my thoughts. I guess that's the most important part for me personally. One of my first books, JavaScript Code Concept and Practice, was originally an open series I published on my blog. I wrote them publicly, collecting feedback along the way, and refined them over time. The whole thing grew organically. The same happened with my second book, Lightweight Web Application Development. It's a very old book already. It's out of a series of blog posts and small essays and built up over time. And later on, I started to write long-form articles for martinfollow.com. Collaborating with Martin and other domain experts helped me sharpen my thinking even more. Over time, I realized that writing wasn't just a way to share knowledge, it's a way to clarify my own thinking. Even today, I often draft ideas in Notion, then I refine them, sometimes with help from ChatGPT, make them cleaner and more structured. If the idea still feels worth sharing, I will turn them into a newsletter issue, sometimes a video, sometimes even bigger, maybe a long-form article in martinfollow.com or a self-published book. The habit of writing is become a core part of how I learn. And the fifth habit I want to share is learning to work with people. So this is a big shift to me. That was learning how to work with people, really work with them, not just like collaborating in code, but align with them, communicate more clearly, and make shared decision. As a consultant, I was constantly switching projects, new teams, new domain, new stakeholders every few months. And because of that, I got involved in things like pre-sales, project kickoff. I sat in client meetings, heard how they talk about the problem, and start to understand what really matters in a software project. It's not always that we as developers focusing on. It's not a tech stack. It's not about perfecting testing coverage. It's not about the clever abstractions. It's value. Are we actually solving the right problem for the right people? That's something I couldn't fully grasp until I had those first-hand conversation. Hearing directly from the stakeholders gave me a cleaner lens. It helped me to ask better questions, clarify trade-offs, and understand when we push back and when to adapt. So over time, those conversations shaped how I think about software. And honestly, they helped me grow as much as any technical skill ever did. I used to think growth comes from writing more code, getting faster, shipping more. But those 2 years taught me something else. What separates a good developer from a great one isn't just the code they write. It's how they communicate, how they think, how they collaborate, and how they understand the big picture. And once I internalized that, I started to grow not just in skills, but in impact. If you are earlier in your career or maybe feel stuck, I hope this story helped. None of these habits are secret or complicated, but they do take time and intention. And if you have gone through a similar shift or found something else that accelerates your growth, I would like to hear about it. Let me know in the comments. See you.